Buenas tardes a todos. Supongo que la mayoría de vosotros estaréis pensando, llevo ya casi 2 horas en un evento de seguridad y nadie ha hablado de cloud, de la nube, de la seguridad en cloud. Yo sí voy a hablar de cloud y necesito el mando para poder pasar. Voy a hablar de la seguridad en la nube. ¿Por qué? Porque la nube es algo que para nosotros ya es inevitable. Es algo que es una realidad en la que todas las empresas están abordando. ¿Y por qué? Porque el entorno competitivo que tenemos todos los que estamos aquí en nuestros negocios, independientemente de cuál sea la industria en la que trabajamos, es cada vez más fuerte. La presión competitiva no para de crecer y eso está obligando a nuestras empresas a tener que transformarse, a tener que ser más eficientes en el uso de sus recursos, ser más productivas. Y además lo necesitan hacer de una forma ágil, de una forma flexible. Es decir, las empresas hoy día necesitan poder cambiar de prioridades, poder invertir mucho más en una cierta línea de negocio, parar en otra, pero a lo mejor al año siguiente necesitan cambiar de nuevo la prioridad, necesitan flexibilidad, necesitan escalabilidad. Y todo lo deben hacer además con la máxima eficiencia. Cada vez los recursos son más escasos y hay que centrarlos en aquellas áreas en las que realmente la compañía pueda conseguir ventajas competitivas en su negocio. En el resto tienen que apoyarse en las soluciones estándar que hay en el mercado. Y todos los departamentos en la empresa, desde el área financiera hasta el área de recursos humanos, desde las áreas comerciales hasta las áreas de compras, están utilizando o poniendo cada vez más presión en las áreas de TI para tener más flexibilidad y más agilidad en sus sistemas. ¿Y qué le queda a las áreas de TI, como nosotros o vosotros? Solo la posibilidad de ir a la nube, ir a los líderes del mercado, que son los que les permiten gozar de las características más avanzadas en esas soluciones sin tener que hacer una inversión pesada. Es una tendencia imparable y esto lo confirma una encuesta reciente de la firma de analistas Sobum, ¿no? En la que ha quedado patente que el 77% de las empresas en el año 2018 tendrán información sensible en aplicaciones de software as a service en la cloud. Es decir, nuestros datos como compañías van a estar, en caso de Telefónica, muchos datos ya están en esos entornos sensibles. Con lo cual, esta realidad tenemos que aceptarla desde las áreas de seguridad de nuestras empresas, desde las áreas de TI y no intentar oponernos a ella. Pero es obvio que esta realidad viene acompañada de importantes retos. Retos que están asociados a que a partir de que pasamos a la nube, la información está ya en manos de terceros, no está en nuestro poder. Y dependemos de las medidas de seguridad que esos terceros implementen. Y pueden ser buenas, pero pueden no serlo tanto. Por ejemplo, muchos de ellos no tienen lo que hemos visto en la presentación anterior de identidad, niveles adicionales de autorización para proteger sus cuentas. ¿Qué sucedería si uno de nuestros proveedores de servicio desde la nube sufre un incidente de seguridad? ¿Qué sucedería con nuestros datos? ¿Cómo podríamos recuperarlos? ¿Cómo podríamos salvaguardar la privacidad de la información de nuestra compañía? Es una preocupación que nosotros en Telefónica tenemos y que estoy seguro de que vosotros en vuestras compañías también la tenéis. Otra singularidad, otro reto, está asociado a la ubicación geográfica de esos datos, ¿no? ¿Qué pasa si esos datos se almacenan en otro país que tiene una regulación distinta a la nuestra? Además, un tema candente, ¿no? Yo creo que todos estaréis al tanto de la resolución del Tribunal de Justicia de la Unión Europea al respecto, ¿no? Yo creo que es una preocupación que todos tenemos y un reto que tendremos que afrontar sin duda en esa transición a la cloud. Y además, al estar en la nube, cada vez tenemos menos control de lo que hacen nuestros empleados y es más difícil para nosotros desde las áreas de seguridad preservar la información que están manejando, la privacidad de la misma, sin interferir en la usabilidad de los servicios y de las aplicaciones. ¿Cómo podemos conseguir mantener los controles que teníamos antes en este nuevo entorno y sin reducir la productividad de nuestros empleados? Es otro reto importante que tenemos que afrontar. Y lo que hemos pensado en Telefónica, tanto para ayudarnos a nosotros mismos como para ayudar a vuestras empresas a afrontar estos retos, es construir una suite que nos permita garantizar la protección de datos en las aplicaciones en la nube. Es lo que denominamos Telefónica Data Protection Suite. Y es un conjunto de herramientas que va a permitirnos cubrir todo el ciclo de colaboración en la nube con la información sensible de la compañía. Tenemos la parte de colaboración segura con MetaShield Protector. MetaShield Protector es un producto que conocéis, es nuestra solución de análisis de tratamiento de metadatos, con sus diferentes versiones. Tenemos MetaShield para el cliente desktop o para laptop, MetaShield para su integración con Outlook, MetaShield para distintos productos de servidores como Internet Information Server, como SharePoint, como servidores de ficheros y una consola de gestión de MetaShield que permite a los administradores aplicar de forma automática las políticas que deseen en su compañía. Tenemos la parte de almacenamiento seguro en la nube, tanto desde nuestros data centers, en nuestros servicios de almacenamiento de Infrastructure as a Service, como también cuando optáis por proveedores de servicio de Software as a Service, proveedores terceros, en los que también podemos añadir desde nuestra red un cifrado de la información que almacenáis, pero permitiendo mantener la usabilidad de ese servicio sin alterar su estructura. En toda la parte de control de acceso, de autenticación y autorización, hemos estado viendo los elementos que tenemos en el portfolio y que permiten cubrir el ciclo de vida completamente y dotar de diferentes niveles dependiendo de la criticidad de la aplicación o del servicio al que queremos acceder. Y por último, la gestión inteligente de la seguridad, que todos estos elementos generan alertas, queremos recibir esas alertas, esas notificaciones, poder correrlas con el resto de información de seguridad que tenemos en nuestros sistemas y generar valor, tanto para los analistas de seguridad de nuestros y vuestros equipos, como también para los niveles de gestión, de dirección de la empresa, de forma que podáis medir el impacto que las medidas de seguridad están teniendo en vuestro negocio. Con esta suite podemos proteger muchas aplicaciones, pero queríamos mostraros hoy un caso concreto, el caso de Office 365. ¿Y por qué Office 365? Porque yo creo que es sin duda uno de los más extendidos, ¿no? Nosotros, Telefónica, somos usuarios de Office 365 y vendemos a nuestros clientes cientos de miles de licencias anualmente. Imagino, ¿cuántos de aquí tenéis Office 365 en vuestras empresas instalado? ¿Podéis levantar la mano? Yo creo que es una mayoría y va a seguir creciendo. Es un producto, obviamente, que está teniendo un éxito tremendo, ¿no? Y hay compañeros de Microsoft aquí con los que tenemos una alianza estratégica, pero sobre los niveles de seguridad de Office 365 podemos ir más allá. Podemos desde nuestras empresas tener un segundo nivel de control que de verdad gestionemos desde nuestras capacidades. Y Telefónica ofrece ese segundo nivel de control, con 3 piezas de la suite que mostraba anteriormente. Por un lado, MetaShield para Outlook. Desde el cliente de correo podemos determinar qué políticas seguimos para la compartición de información respecto a qué metadatos incluyen esa información en los anexos de los correos electrónicos. Podemos hacerlo de forma automática e idéntica para todos los correos que enviemos, pero también tener la granularidad para determinar si algún correo queremos que sea adjunto, si viaje con los metadatos, poder hacerlo. Tenemos también la capacidad, como os decía antes, para cifrar la información que estamos mandando a los servidores de Microsoft en la nube, que esa información se almacene cifrada en la nube de Microsoft, pero manteniendo la estructura de datos de forma que podemos seguir operando con ella normalmente y además teniendo la gestión de claves única por cliente e independiente de Microsoft. Es un nivel de seguridad adicional a todas las medidas que obviamente Microsoft está implementando. De modo que, aunque Microsoft tuviera una brecha de seguridad, esa información estaría protegida por ese siguiente nivel de cifrado. Y además disponemos de Latch para ofrecer diferentes niveles adicionales de autorización basado, como hemos visto, en diferentes parámetros, en el dispositivo que usamos para acceder, en la operación que queremos realizar, en la geolocalización, en la ubicación en la que nos encontramos. Para entender bien cómo podemos mantener el control de Office 365 con esta suite, tenemos la oportunidad de poder verlo en directo y la suerte además de tener hoy aquí a Ben Matzkel, que es cofundador y Chief Technology Officer de Voltive, la empresa partner con la que estamos desarrollando y hemos implantado este producto, y lo mejor es que lo veáis.
The importance of protecting information within the context of cloud, I think, is well known by now. Cloud technologies are being used more and more by companies. They're becoming more prevalent. And the challenges that cloud computing poses are very different than classic data protection in the digital age. And so information that used to be under the control and ownership of a particular company and its IT infrastructure is now hosted within an environment that may be very secure, but is not under the complete control and ownership of the company that actually owns the data. And so Voltive was formed to essentially build a product and a set of technology capabilities that would allow companies to take very sensitive information and host it in the cloud in a way that provides them with a lot more security and actual better control over the information than the classic use case. And so I will show you a couple of different products, a couple of different technologies. I think that we're going to show you a live demo of a new integration that we're performing together with Telefonica. And I'll begin by showing you the classic Voltive technology that focuses on the encryption of sensitive data within the context of Office 365 and Exchange Online. So I'll begin with a quick demonstration that will show the architecture of the solution. So a quick description of what we're seeing here. This is obviously a very simplified diagram of how the data will flow. On the bottom left and on the top on the left side, top and bottom, you can see legitimate workstations belonging to an organization. And so this could be either the corporate network or workstations or people who are roaming outside. The service that we're integrating together with Telefonica will be hosted within the secure Telefonica data centers, and that's the machine that you're seeing in the middle. Vaultive technology powers the Telefonica solution. And the solution itself will allow customers to take sensitive information, which is hosted in this example within Exchange Online and Office 365. So email information, email in general, is usually the sinkhole of every single type of data that exists in a corporation, in an organization, and it's very critical to encrypt all of these records. And so the way that this solution is architected is that Vaultive is essentially built and delivered as an encryption gateway residing between the client-side environment, so browsers, mobile phones, any type of device that users use to access the information, and the public cloud environment. Now, in the case of an email message, when a message is initially composed, it will be composed at an end device. So this could be a mobile phone or a computer. And then when that message is delivered to a recipient and is about to be hosted within the public cloud environment, then that information will travel over the wire, hit the encryption gateways that are hosted by Telefonica, will become encrypted with Vaultive's technology, which I will elaborate on in a couple minutes. And then the encrypted message is what travels outside to the Microsoft environment, and this is what's hosted in the public cloud. So the encryption keys are kept completely separate from the location, the servers, and the data centers that host the actual data. And that separation between the encryption keys that reside at a trusted location, that could be even, in our case, within Europe, in Spain, it could be local to a certain geography, and completely separate from the environment where the data is hosted, which could be abroad, could be in a whole different geography. This is especially relevant with the new announcements made by European courts about how Safe Harbor was essentially invalidated. And so you can store sensitive information wherever you want in the public cloud with encryption keys that are hosted and stored in a secure location in a different geography. Now, when that information needs to be accessed by someone, in the case of an email message, it may be delivered to another person working for the same organization or for another company, then that information would be delivered back. Sorry, one quick thing. Whenever somebody tries to access the information that's encrypted in the cloud, then obviously whether they're a malicious entity or someone that somehow gained access into that environment, then all they're going to see is just the encrypted information. And they don't have any access to the encryption keys. Now, when the data, again, has to be delivered to a legitimate recipient, then it would, again, traverse the network, travel through the encryption gateway, become decrypted with the encryption keys that are hosted there, and then delivered to become decrypted and then delivered to the original recipient. And so as long as you have legitimate access into that environment, then you can gain access to your data. But wherever it's stored in the cloud, it's completely useless. Now, let me show you the solution working. So right now, what you can see here is a standard Office 365 mailbox. What we're showing here is a standard browser. Vaultive's technology and the solution that we're offering does not require any code running at the end station, no plugins, no agent code running on your machine. Everything is done at the network level. And what's interesting and unique about our capabilities is that we're able to encrypt information with standard AES 256-bit encryption, but at the same time maintain a lot of the characteristics and capabilities that are required in order to continue and allow cloud to perform operations on that data. And so what you can see here is that this mailbox that I'm accessing functions and behaves just like a standard mailbox. It's very responsive. You can see that the messages themselves are formatted properly, and I can also engage with them. So for example, I can grab a couple of words from an email message, copy them, and then ask the cloud environment to actually search for all the messages that contain that particular piece of text. And this is what's interesting about this technology is that the information that lives behind the scenes within the Microsoft data centers, in this case, looks very different. So this is, in this second tab right here, I'm going directly from this browser directly into the Microsoft data center, bypassing the Vaultive solution, and showing you what the actual information looks like. So this is an encoded but strongly encrypted AES 256-bit encryption of the original messages that you've seen in the other tab. You can see that the attachments are also encrypted, the file names are encrypted, subject, bodies, attachments, every relevant piece of information will be strongly protected by our solution. If I would try to run a search, let's run a search for the word encryption that obviously exists in many of these messages. You can see it retrieves multiple results. If I would try to run the same exact search in this tab, then it will retrieve no results. So the actual information hosted in the cloud is completely useless to anyone who gains direct access to it. Now, we're not limiting this to email messages alone. I mean, the Vaultive solution can be applied on many different cloud applications. For example, this user also has access to a calendar. As you can see, this guy is not too busy. If I access the same set of information directly through the direct browser, you can see that this information is protected and encrypted as well. And so the Vaultive solution allows you to access your information completely transparently so that there's very little impact to the end user. In most cases, they're not even going to be affected or even know that the solution actually involves an encryption layer. But at the same time, you get very strong data protection, and you regain control and ownership of your data, even though it's hosted some outside in the public cloud. Now, this can be applied not just on the browser session, but across all different types of devices that I mentioned before. And this brings me into a whole different problem that we had to solve. So encryption is probably, I think, one of the most important security tools when you're looking to secure information, but it's completely worthless unless you enforce strong key management, access control, and good authorization, so very granular authorization of the access to those encryption keys. If your data is strongly encrypted, but everybody has access to the encryption keys, then it's not really, not very usable. So what we've done and what we're basically announcing in this conference is the integration and a partnership between Telefonica and Vaultive. We took the Latch solution and tried to use its capabilities when it comes to strong authentication and very granular and configurable access controls to allow us to differentiate between different types of use cases, threat vectors, and access scenarios into the secure Vaultive way of accessing the cloud information. And so to demonstrate that, I will show you how Vaultive integrated with Latch. Let's log in and also demonstrate this, hopefully using my iPhone. OK. So what you can see here is Vaultive integrated with Latch. The solution allows for very granular provisioning and access controls around different operations that involve Office 365 in a person's mailbox. So to demonstrate that, we'll think of a couple of different scenarios that could be of interest. The first one, let me just take you quickly through some of the options that we have here. The first thing that I want to demonstrate are specific controls around devices. So right now, we have different types of devices defined in this Latch client. In here, I can prevent myself, basically, here from logging into my mailbox. So if I activate this Latch right here, and I will try to log in, then what happens now is that Vaultive actually inspects the traffic coming in and requires proper authorization from Latch before the user can actually log in. And so in this case, the device or the IP address could be blocked. And to allow myself to log in, I can just release this Latch and then retry the connection. Once I do that, then the person should be able to log in. And there we go. So I now have access to my mailbox. Now, to make this a bit more interesting, and I think that this is really where the power of Latch and this integration comes into play, is if in a situation where my account has been essentially compromised. So to do that, I'll use Carlos here. We will be playing an evil hacker. We've got, can we see the other phone on the screen? There we go. So in this case, you can think of the scenario as another person who gained access to my controls. If you need to be an evil hacker, by the way, I've got a cap for you. This will help us make it a bit more authentic. Okay, so now this evil hacker has access to my credentials, and he should be, in the classic use case, if we don't apply additional controls, then he would be able to log into my account. So we're using the exact same set of credentials, the username and the password.
Just paste the password.
Yeah, it's a very long and complex password. We've got that in there. And what we should see now are two separate things. First of all, that device is, first of all, blocked. And if I will go into Latch, then, and refresh this real quick, then you can see that a new device was just added. The new device is an unidentified device. So essentially, any new device that would try to connect to this account would first show up as a locked device. And then I need to specifically allow access from that new device to allow Carlos to actually connect to my mailbox. And this really allows you to differentiate between different use cases and different connections and threat vectors. So I think that the next step and what's even more interesting about this is that we're not just limiting this to specific devices. We can apply these controls around any type or a lot of different types of threat profiles. And so, for example, I can define certain protocols that can or cannot be locked. Some functionality, some applications may provide these capabilities built into the administration console, but this is something that we can allow on a per user basis, or as I'll show you later, even on a per operation basis. So I can enable or disable browser access or active sync or access from Windows devices, from Mac devices, and just completely prevent any device from connecting. So if I'm not using a particular protocol, then it should not be open at all. Another thing that we're also supporting is different locations. So if your company has offices in Paris and in Madrid, then you should not normally get connections from China or from Latin America and from other locations. And so you could whitelist or allow particular locations, and whenever somebody's connecting from a new device, instead of just blocking them altogether, what we can do is just ask the user to authorize that particular connection. And so if somebody's traveling abroad, then they would get a notification and they would be allowed to essentially release themselves, unblock themselves, and connect. So it's a very usable solution that the user can configure and allow themselves to use. Now, another very interesting thing about these capabilities are based on the fact that Vaultive's encryption gateway is basically, you can think of it as a proxy that understands applications real well. This means that we have intimate knowledge of what the application does, who the user is, how the data flows, what the data includes, and which fields within the applications or the information is actually being posted to. And so we use that to essentially allow the latching of very particular operations. And we'll talk about two very quick use cases. So as I'm latching these two operations right now, what I can show you right now is that once I do not allow downloading of attachments, for example, then I can try and maybe grab a document here and download it to my computer. And when I try that, then this is the screen that I get. Attachment downloading is prohibited. This could be a single operation. It could be a collection of operations. Maybe you can think of it as perhaps a lockdown mode. If you think that an account may be compromised, you can lock certain sensitive operations of mass downloading of data, or perhaps operations that would seem to be, that would require the limiting of these operations in a thread scenario, but at the same time still allow some usability if the user still needs to get some work done. If I unlatch this lock and try to download the file again, then it's getting downloaded to my computer, and I could just open it and access it as if nothing has changed. Now, the last scenario that I want to show quickly is administrative access. This is a very interesting scenario, in my opinion, because in a lot of cases, when an administrator has an account to the system, as you can see right here, Vincent Vega is a normal user, a legitimate user, and at the same time, he also happens to be an administrator. This means that within 2 clicks, he can get to the billing information, to other people's mailboxes, he can run e-discovery searches, he can connect to the CEO's mailbox and access all of that information. And so when Vincent is logged in, if he walks away from his computer just for a couple of minutes and forgets to lock the screen, then anybody can basically, in 2 clicks, try and get into the administration console. But if this solution is implemented, then once the application, once the administration console is locked, then there's no access. You cannot possibly access the administration console unless this lock is latched. And so the administrator should, work normally with this latch locked, and whenever they need to actually perform an operation, an administrative operation, then they can unlatch, as I've just done, and connect to the administration console. They can perform whatever maintenance operations need to be taken care of, and then the latch could be either automatically locked after a certain timeout, or they can lock it manually when they're done. And so these are just some of the capabilities that we're able to provide. We're extremely excited about this opportunity. We're very thankful for Telefonica for allowing us to present here. And thank you, everyone, for listening.